When Pale Rider hit theaters in 1985, it revived the Western genre with Clint Eastwood's haunting performance as the mysterious preacher. Gritty, atmospheric, and deeply memorable, the film became an instant classic. And it wasn't just Eastwood who left a mark. The supporting cast brought emotional depth and tension to the frontier tale, helping to make Pale Rider one of the standout westerns of the decade. But nearly 40 years later, fans are left wondering, what happened to the actors who helped bring this story to life? In this video, we take a ride back through time to see where the cast is now in 2025, from continued Hollywood success to quiet retirements and everything in between. Discover the real-life stories behind the film's unforgettable faces. Carrie Snodgress was born on October 27, 1945, and played Sarah Wheeler in Pale Rider in 1985, when she was 40 years old. Sarah was a quietly tormented frontier woman, a single mother torn between faith and survival, whose simmering desire for the preacher gave the film its emotional undercurrent. But Carrie's life off-screen was far more chaotic than any role she played. Raised in a conservative Catholic family in Illinois, she grew up emotionally isolated, constantly criticized for her appearance and ambitions. Her early success with Diary of a Mad Housewife earned her an Oscar nomination, but instead of catapulting her into stardom, she abruptly walked away from Hollywood to raise her son Zeke, born from her volatile relationship with rock legend Neil Young. What most don't know is that their breakup spiraled into a custody battle and years of estrangement, as Young allegedly refused to acknowledge Zeke's cerebral palsy in public. Carrie later fell into a toxic relationship with Jack Nietzsche, a celebrated music producer who, in 1979, held her at gunpoint in a cocaine-fueled rage, a scandal quietly buried by his industry connections. Though she pressed charges, she tried returning to acting but found herself blacklisted by producers, wary of her unpredictability and refusal to play the Hollywood game. Snodgress's biggest career failure was being recast last minute from major roles due to her reputation for being emotionally erratic, including a bitter fallout from a Broadway production in the 90s that left her nearly broke. Behind the scenes, she struggled with depression, substance dependence, and was known to disappear from sets without explanation. In her final years, plagued by liver disease, she lived in near obscurity. She died on April 1, 2004, from heart failure while awaiting a liver transplant in Los Angeles. At the time of her death, her estate was valued around $1 million, modest by industry standards, consisting mainly of residuals, a small condo, and Neil Young's discreet financial support for Zeke. Her legacy is a haunting tale of talent eclipsed by trauma, a Hollywood story written in silences and scars. Richard Daart was born on March 30, 1929, and played Coy LaHood in Pale Rider in 1985, when he was 56 years old. As the manipulative and tyrannical mining baron, LaHood was the film's central human villain, a character dripping with patriarchal entitlement and veiled menace. Daart's performance was icy, controlled, and pitch-perfect for the moral vacuum his character represented. Off-screen, however, the actor was nothing like the monsters he portrayed. Raised in Massachusetts during the Great Depression, Richard's early years were spent in near poverty, with a father who abandoned the family and a mother who raised 3 boys alone while working factory shifts. He worked as a janitor and truck loader to pay for his college education, eventually attending the Yale School of Drama, where he developed a reputation for intellectual arrogance. Though widely respected in theater and television, Daart struggled in his early Hollywood years, often dismissed for being too serious or not marketable, and he reportedly clashed with Clint Eastwood on the Pale Rider set over creative control, though the studio buried the dispute. His biggest career disappointment came when he was passed over for a lead role in The China Syndrome, a part written for him, but ultimately given to Jack Lemmon after studio interference. A committed leftist and union organizer, Daart was viewed as politically difficult in Reagan-era Hollywood and frequently blacklisted from conservative-leaning productions. Personally, he maintained a long, quiet marriage, but friends noted the couple lived increasingly separate lives. In his final decade, Daart battled cancer privately, refusing media interviews and withdrawing from public life. He died on April 5, 2015 in Santa Monica, California. His estate, worth an estimated $4 million, included royalties from LA law, art investments, and a historic home in Laurel Canyon filled with rare books and manuscripts. Richard Keel was born on September 13, 1939, and portrayed the role of Club in Pale Rider in 1985 at age 46. Club, though towering and fearsome, shocked audiences by displaying a quiet empathy, an enforcer who ultimately turned on his corrupt employer to save the preacher. But Keel's off-screen narrative was far more tangled than his gentle giant nickname suggested. Born with acromegaly, his immense size made him a magnet for bullying, and his childhood was marked by intense loneliness, a father who abandoned the family, and a mother who reportedly struggled with mental health. Keel escaped into fantasy and later used his intimidating appearance to break into Hollywood, but not without struggle. Studios feared casting him in serious roles. He was often relegated to grotesque villains, culminating in an identity crisis after being cut midway from The Spy Who Loved Me's follow-up script due to creative differences. Behind closed doors, Keel battled a severe alcohol addiction in the 1970s, with one hospitalization kept from the public after a bender allegedly led to an altercation with police in Palm Springs, details that never made the tabloids. His lowest point came after a failed business venture in real estate left him nearly bankrupt, and rumors swirled that he took demeaning roles just to pay debts. Keel's marriage to Diane Rogers was stormy, with one leaked letter suggesting infidelity and emotional abuse, though the couple publicly denied any issues. Their son once revealed in an unfiltered 2007 podcast that the family dynamic had been complicated by fame and fear. After a debilitating car crash in 1992, Keel struggled with painkiller dependence and mobility issues, but tried to stage a comeback through voice work. He passed away on September 10, 2014, at age 74 from heart disease, just days before his 75th birthday in Fresno, California. His estate, heavily diminished by medical bills and years of modest income, was valued at roughly $1 million, mainly consisting of limited property, memorabilia, and dwindling bond royalties. Charles Halahan was born on July 29, 1943, and took on the role of McGill in Pale Rider in 1985 at age 42. As a gruff, working-class henchman, McGill embodied the raw, blue-collar brutality that contrasted with the mythic heroism of the preacher. Halahan's ability to disappear into such roles was uncanny, but that very gift came from a life of internalized shame and unspoken struggle. Raised in the poverty-ridden slums of Philadelphia, Halahan was the child of a violent ex-steelworker and a religiously fanatical mother. Home life was volatile, and he often sought refuge in theater, performing in church plays to avoid his father's rages. His early years in New York were spent living in a car while auditioning, and he was briefly homeless in 1972, a fact he kept hidden even from his closest friends. Though revered by stage peers, Halahan's Hollywood journey was littered with silent sabotage. He was once fired from a television pilot after clashing with a producer over what he called incompetent direction, and never worked with that studio again. Quietly blackballed, he turned to theater but struggled financially. His lowest point came in 1984, when his role in a major sci-fi blockbuster was recast at the last moment. His family later confirmed he spiraled into a depression that nearly ended his marriage. His personal life was outwardly stable, but his wife once confided to a friend that he suffered frequent night terrors and would scream in his sleep, likely rooted in PTSD from a childhood incident involving domestic violence. Despite no public scandal, his bitterness toward Hollywood never faded. He often referred to himself in interviews as the placeholder for the actor they really wanted, revealing a deep-seated insecurity. On November 25, 1997, while driving in Los Angeles, Halahan suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 54. He died alone, slumped at the wheel, only discovered hours later. His estate, a combination of modest real estate, union pensions, and savings, was valued between $1 to $2 million. Chris Penn was born on October 10, 1965, and portrayed Josh LaHood in Pale Rider in 1985 at just 20 years old. Josh, the petulant and violent son of a mining tycoon, was a role Penn inhabited with alarming ease, a harbinger of the troubled and unpredictable figures he would often play. Beneath his explosive on-screen energy, however, Chris struggled with deep personal demons. Born into a high-profile acting family, the younger brother of Sean Penn and son of director Leo Penn, he grew up in the shadow of impossible expectations. Bullied for his weight and appearance, Chris turned to food and later substances as emotional escape, while Hollywood cast him as the second-tier Penn, a label he could never shake. Despite standout roles in Reservoir Dogs and Footloose, Chris was considered difficult on set, often arriving late, refusing direction, and clashing with directors over script changes. His off-screen life was marked by bar fights, rehab stints, and rumors of involvement with shady figures in Los Angeles nightlife. One of the most tragic episodes of his career came when he was fired from a major role in Enemy of the State due to his erratic behavior and weight gain, a professional embarrassment he never fully recovered from. Friends said he oscillated between moments of clarity and weeks-long benders, sometimes disappearing without contact. His love life was a revolving door of failed relationships, many with adult film actresses, and his closest confidants claimed he longed to be taken seriously but couldn't escape his addictions. On January 24, 2006, Chris was found dead in his Santa Monica condo. The autopsy revealed a fatal heart condition exacerbated by obesity, Valium, morphine, and codeine, all legally prescribed but dangerously combined. At the time of death, his net worth stood around $5 million, including properties, savings, and royalties from voice work like Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas. Chris Penn's story remains a cautionary tale of promise undone by personal chaos, a man consumed by the Hollywood machine he was born into. John Russell was born on January 3, 1921, and played Stockburn in Pale Rider in 1985 at age 64. As the ruthless federal marshal, Stockburn embodied ice-cold authority and implacable menace, an antagonist who never blinked. Yet few knew that Russell's own life mirrored the same cold emotional detachment he brought to screen. Born into old Hollywood lineage but orphaned by age 10, he was shuffled through relatives' homes, many of whom considered him more burden than boy. That early emotional neglect hardened him. By adulthood, he was described by friends as charming but emotionally impenetrable. His military service during World War II left him decorated but distant, and those who worked with him claimed he had a switch that turned warmth into hostility instantly. His acting career boomed in the 50s, but he quickly grew resentful of typecasting. In the early 1970s, he was quietly blacklisted after an on-set altercation with a studio executive over payment, with whispers of physical violence kept hushed. He later sued the studio. An ugly battle settled out of court under a gag order. Russell's personal life was no less stormy. His first marriage ended in scandal after reports emerged of his affair with a younger co-star, who later accused him of emotional coercion. The scandal was buried with the help of a studio fixer. His children remained largely estranged, with one daughter later saying he was more myth than man at home. By the late 80s, Russell's health was in rapid decline due to chain smoking and untreated emphysema. He grew increasingly paranoid, convinced he was being followed by FBI agents. Friends attributed it to medication side effects, but some believed he had secrets from wartime he never disclosed. He died on January 19, 1991, age 70, in Santa Barbara, from emphysema-related complications. His estate, mired in unpaid taxes and legal fees from decades earlier, was worth under $1 million. Today, he's remembered less for celebrity and more for the aura of quiet menace and mystery he left behind. Richard Hamilton was born on December 31, 1920, and played Jed Blankenship in Pale Rider in 1985 at age 64. Jed was the epitome of quiet, grizzled wisdom, a loyal miner who stood his ground even as his world was crumbling. On screen, he seemed rooted like a mountain, but off-screen, Richard's life was anything but stable. Born to a volatile Irish Catholic family in Depression-era Chicago, he grew up amidst violence, often describing his home as a Cold War zone. He ran away at 15, joined the Merchant Marine under a fake name, and later used the GI Bill to study acting, though his theater teachers often told him he lacked charisma. For years, Hamilton scraped by doing radio work and off-Broadway performances, developing a reputation as temperamental and fiercely opinionated. Known for outbursts during rehearsals, he was once banned from a major New York theater company for punching a stage manager. One of his most crushing professional failures came in the early 1970s when he was cast in a lead role in a Broadway revival that folded after just 1 week, an event he blamed on artistic sabotage. In Hollywood, he was better respected but remained volatile, frequently walking off sets over minor script disagreements. His personal life was cloaked in mystery. He never married and lived alone in a cluttered Catskills cabin, surrounded by books and old rifles. Some speculated about reclusive tendencies, while others whispered about unacknowledged children from brief affairs with actresses in the 50s. In the 1990s, he battled Parkinson's disease and struggled to remember lines, which slowly ended his acting career. He died on December 21, 2004, just 10 days shy of his 84th birthday in his Catskills home. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated between $1 to $2 million, consisting largely of accumulated royalties, a modest real estate portfolio, and rare vintage firearms. Despite his often gruff demeanor, Richard Hamilton remains a haunting figure in Hollywood lore, uncompromising, brilliant, and ultimately alone. Fran Ryan was born on November 29, 1916, and portrayed Ma Blankenship in Pale Rider in 1985 at the age of 69. Ma Blankenship was a gruff yet kind-hearted matriarch whose resilience and wit added authenticity to the rough mining community, becoming one of the film's emotional anchors despite limited screen time. While her character exuded strength and humor, Fran's real life was shaped by a haunting series of tragedies that most of Hollywood never spoke of publicly. Born in Los Angeles to a working-class family during the final years of World War I, she experienced abandonment early on when her father disappeared during the Great Depression, never to be heard from again. She grew up in foster care and was bullied for her raspy voice and eccentric appearance, traits that later defined her on-screen image. Her personal life was marked by rare misfortune. Both of her husbands died in plane crashes, the first while she was pregnant with their only child, who tragically died from sudden infant death syndrome. In her career, Fran was typecast for decades, often playing aging eccentrics or comedic relief. Roles she claimed in a 1990 interview made her feel like Hollywood's punchline. Behind her professionalism, there were unspoken tensions with directors who underestimated her, and she was quietly blacklisted from certain productions in the 70s after publicly criticizing casting couch culture, a stance decades ahead of her time. Despite the grief and loneliness that defined her private world, she never remarried and buried herself in work. In her later years, she suffered from undiagnosed depression and retreated from the public eye. She died on January 15, 2000 at age 83 from natural causes in Burbank, California. Her estate was modest. Her net worth at the time was under $1 million, consisting of a small Pasadena cottage, residuals, and a lifelong SAG pension. Yet Fran remains an unheralded icon, a woman whose quiet endurance mirrored the characters she portrayed and whose life hid a depth of sorrow few ever knew. Billy Drago was born on November 30, 1945, and played Deputy Mather in 1985 at the age of 40. As the sadistic enforcer in Pale Rider, Drago oozed menace with every glance, leaving a lasting impression on audiences despite limited screen time. His portrayal helped cement him as a go-to villain in Hollywood's underworld of shadows and moral decay. But Drago's real-life story mirrored the eerie enigma of his characters far more than fans realize. Born into poverty in a rural Kansas town, Drago's upbringing was defined by violence, alcoholism, and secrets. His father, a Native American boxer, was rarely present, and his mother allegedly suffered from untreated schizophrenia. He ran away from home at 15, lied about his age to work in oil fields, and later reinvented himself with a stage name inspired by his grandmother's Romany roots. Throughout his career, Drago was often described as difficult, cultivating a mysterious aura that alienated casting directors. His biggest career failure came in the late 90s when he was dropped last minute from a lead role in a major studio thriller after being accused of erratic on-set behavior, including refusing direction and insisting on rewriting his dialogue. Industry whispers accused him of sabotaging his own opportunities due to paranoia and control issues. Despite never being linked to any public scandals, rumors swirled of a secret second family in a long-term relationship with a prominent B-movie actress that ended in an NDA-enforced split. After the death of his wife, Silvana Gallardo, in 2012, Drago became increasingly reclusive, allegedly refusing interviews and rarely appearing in public. He died on June 24, 2019, in Los Angeles at age 73, due to complications from a stroke. At the time of his death, he left behind a modest estate that included a small Hollywood Hills bungalow, residual income from over 100 film and TV appearances, and a collection of occult literature reportedly worth thousands. His net worth was estimated at $1.5 million, small by industry standards, but reflective of a man who spent a lifetime playing devils while wrestling with his own. Michael Morardi was born on April 5, 1941, and took on the role of Hull Barrett in 1985 at age 44. In Pale Rider, Barrett served as the emotional fulcrum, a soft-spoken miner who represents both the vulnerability and courage of the oppressed. Morardi infused the role with a humanism that starkly contrasted Eastwood's otherworldly stoicism, but that tenderness belied the turmoil of an actor perpetually at war with himself. Raised by a cold, career-obsessed father and a distant mother in Detroit, Morardi was a child prodigy in music and acting, yet deeply insecure. Behind the intellect lay a volatility that earned him both Emmys and enemies. His promising television career cratered after a public and bizarre tirade against U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno over censorship, causing him to be ousted from Law & Order in 1994. He claimed the government was coming for artistic freedom, but many insiders believed it was a meltdown fueled by untreated bipolar disorder and alcohol dependency. Morardi also had a habit of derailing sets with his demands, including full control over his own wardrobe and near-constant philosophical debates with directors mid-shoot. He's been married 4 times, with a trail of broken engagements and an estranged relationship with his only son. A particularly disturbing episode came in the early 2000s when he fled to Canada and began writing anti-government essays laced with conspiracy theories and misogyny, leading to speculation about his mental health. Though he resurfaced briefly as a jazz musician, his erratic behavior persisted. Diagnosed with liver disease in the 2010s, he withdrew from the public eye and now lives in semi-retirement in British Columbia. At 84, he remains a cult figure to diehard fans and a cautionary tale in Hollywood. His current net worth is estimated at $5 million, comprising royalties, a remote cabin, and music rights. Once heralded as a genius, Morardi became an exile by choice, his own worst enemy cloaked in intellect. Clint Eastwood was born on May 31, 1930, and portrayed Preacher in 1985 at age 55. The ghostly gunslinger with divine overtones, Preacher blended biblical wrath with Eastwood's iconic brand of silent, deadly justice. The role not only revitalized the Western genre, but blurred the line between man and myth. Yet Eastwood's own life has long echoed the violence and vengeance of his characters. Behind the stoic exterior lies a labyrinth of chaos. Eastwood was raised in a home destabilized by the Great Depression, constantly moving and emotionally distant from both parents. He was expelled from multiple schools and later survived a plane crash while serving in the Army, a trauma he never fully acknowledged. Though celebrated for Unforgiven and Million Dollar Baby, Eastwood's career was peppered with rumors of controlling behavior, ruthless manipulation of studio politics, and borderline psychological warfare on set. His most glaring professional failure was the box office disaster Paint Your Wagon, where he sang poorly in a genre he couldn't carry, nearly destroying his leading man status in the late 60s. In his personal life, Eastwood fathered at least 8 children with 6 different women, many of whom didn't even know he was their father until adulthood. One ex-lover called him emotionally unavailable to the point of cruelty, and his long-term relationships have been plagued by allegations of infidelity and emotional abuse. The sudden death of longtime partner Sandra Locke and the estrangement from some of his children cast a permanent shadow over his later years. Now 95, Eastwood lives on his secluded Carmel ranch, rarely appearing in public except for carefully curated press events. His empire includes multiple properties in California, a golf course, a production company, and stakes in international real estate, accumulating to a staggering net worth of over $375 million. Revered and feared in equal measure, Clint Eastwood remains an icon carved from contradictions. Part prophet, part tyrant. Sidney Penny was born on August 7, 1971, and played Megan Wheeler in Pale Rider in 1985 at age 13. Her portrayal of Megan, a tender yet emotionally mature girl deeply captivated by the enigmatic preacher, gave the film a subtle emotional tension that disturbed some viewers more than they expected from a Western. Penny's wide-eyed innocence and lingering stares added layers of unresolved adolescent longing, sparking uncomfortable behind-the-scenes conversations about how far the role should go. Despite the glowing reviews and a Young Artist Award, few knew the troubled foundation on which her early success was built. Raised in a household steeped in show business, Sidney's father was a former actor and singer, but the family was far from stable. Early accounts from insiders suggest her mother was a deeply controlling stage parent who monitored Sidney's diet, schedule, and even friendships with obsessive precision. As her career bloomed in soap operas and miniseries, Penny's clean image was constantly at odds with the psychological strain she endured, reportedly leading to panic attacks during production on Santa Barbara. Though she never had public scandals, former co-stars describe a withdrawn and distant persona, possibly a defense mechanism after years of being over-sexualized in her teen roles. Her biggest professional heartbreak came when she was cast and then dropped from a major feature film in the early 2000s after producers claimed she lacked market draw. Personally, her life was marked by quiet tragedies, most notably the death of her husband, producer Robert Powers, in 2024, following a long illness that Penny reportedly kept secret even from friends. She has no children and has remained out of the limelight, reportedly living alone in a modest home in North Carolina. As of 2025, she is 54 years old with an estimated net worth of $2 million, including property and residuals. Despite decades in the industry, she has always seemed just out of reach, both to her audience and to those closest to her. Jeffrey Weissman was born on October 2, 1958, and portrayed Teddy Conway in Pale Rider in 1985 at age 26. Teddy, though a minor character, symbolized youthful idealism amidst the corruption and violence of the frontier. Weissman's soft-spoken performance made him a quiet standout, but his real notoriety came later when he controversially replaced Crispin Glover as George McFly in Back to the Future 2 and 3. The decision sparked an industry-shaking lawsuit over image rights that still echoes through Hollywood today. What many don't know is that Weissman was deeply reluctant to accept the role, knowing it would permanently tie him to someone else's legacy. Raised in a fractured family in California, Weissman battled anxiety and insecurity early in life, often retreating into performance as a means of escape. After Back to the Future, his career should have skyrocketed, but instead he became an emblem of Hollywood's expendability, losing out on roles due to the stigma of being a replacement actor. He also battled chronic vertigo and tinnitus for years, conditions exacerbated by intense stage work, forcing him to scale back public appearances. Though he avoided substance abuse and major scandal, former colleagues describe him as obsessively perfectionist, with a tendency to alienate producers through long-winded critiques and unwelcome rewrites. His biggest disappointment came when his indie feature, Cartoon Show, was pulled from distribution after disputes with the production company over Final Cut. Personally, he's been married and divorced once and has no children. He's currently in a long-term relationship with a theater producer and lives in Northern California, where he runs improv workshops and guest lectures at acting academies. At age 66, his estimated net worth is about $1 million, made through decades of teaching, voice work, and residuals. Weissman remains a cult figure to sci-fi fans, but never achieved the fame he brushed against. His career shaped more by what he didn't get than what he did. Doug McGrath was born on April 13, 1935, and took on the role of Spider Conway in Pale Rider in 1985 at age 50. Spider was the soul of the mining camp, fiercely loyal, battered by hardship, yet stubbornly idealistic. His fiery death on screen became one of the film's emotional anchors, but off-screen, McGrath's life was far less dramatic, or so the public thought. Born in poverty in Nova Scotia, McGrath grew up in a household shattered by alcoholism and domestic violence. He dropped out of school early and joined a traveling repertory company just to escape. Despite building a reputation as a consummate character actor, McGrath was plagued by resentment at being typecast in loser or everyman roles. His simmering frustration reportedly exploded during the filming of Pale Rider, where crew members say he once stormed off set after Clint Eastwood refused to reshoot a scene he felt diminished his character. Although never a tabloid regular, McGrath's private life was marked by instability. An early marriage ended in quiet divorce, and a long-term relationship with a younger actress ended bitterly, with her accusing him of emotional manipulation and career sabotage. His darkest professional moment came in the early 90s, when he was accused, though never charged, of inappropriate conduct during a Toronto stage production. The fallout saw him quietly blacklisted from certain Canadian theater circles. In later years, he withdrew from acting altogether, citing health issues and a desire for privacy. He now lives in semi-isolation on Vancouver Island, and though still alive at age 90, he suffers from advanced dementia, according to close sources. His financial situation is modest, with no luxury properties or business ventures, and his estimated net worth remains undisclosed but likely under $500,000. Though largely forgotten by younger audiences, McGrath's legacy lingers as a complex figure, a man of talent and deep wounds, revered by peers but haunted by bitterness. Thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through classic television history. If you enjoyed learning about the cast of Pale Rider and where they are now, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more vintage Hollywood retrospectives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your memories and suggestions, so let us know which TV show or movie cast you'd like us to feature next.